Hello and welcome to episode 40 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
As a reminder, please like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, which helps more people find the show.
And share it with any cinephiles in your life.
Today's episode deals with the topic of how far I'll go, both literally and figuratively, as we review Disney's live-action remake of Moana and the new outing from director Olivia Wilde, The Invite.
Yes, one is an invitation that is definitely worth RSVPing for. The other one, well, they threw a better party 10 years ago. Let's just say that. Up to you to figure out which is which.
Surely going to be a fun discussion today that you won't want to miss.
Yes, absolutely. But before we get into our reviews, let's catch up on some news. So we have this recent headline that Letterboxd is for sale, and Netflix, Paramount, Sony, all interested in buying. Not clear exactly who's in the forefront here to win that race, or what any details would be. But suffice it to say that this is bad news for the cinephile community, we are all obsessed with Letterboxd and being bought out by any of these giant corporations. I mean, number one, just the idea of a movie studio buying a movie reviewing platform is a bit problematic, and just all of the possibilities that this could lead to paying for higher prices for subscriptions, losing free features, things like that. People are definitely very concerned that the one good social media app, as a lot of people would call it, is definitely it's on the chopping block to be sucked up by capitalism, just like everything else. So, it's looking a little bleak if this goes through. Bryan, what did you think about this news?
The bleakness just keeps coming and coming, and it ain't going to stop anytime soon, unfortunately. Yeah, when I saw this headline, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Why would Letterboxd even consider putting themselves on sale and for these studios to buy it? I believe Reddit is also in talks to purchase it, and never in my life did I say that Reddit buying something would be better than a studio buying something. But honestly, this is a very scary situation because Letterboxd is a very special place. Of course, you meet a lot of toxic people on there, but it's a really special community for us cinephiles and people who are just getting into film. And now, if it gets bought out by a conglomerate like a Netflix or a Paramount or a Sony, it's just going to get ruined. Letterboxd should not be owned by studios. It should be owned by people who are not associated with studios. So this is a very unfortunate thing that I hope gets tossed out of the window sooner than later, because if Letterboxd is really looking to be purchased by somebody, I just hope it's not by any studio. And listen, even if it's the best studio in the world, I don't want any studio touching and tarnishing Letterboxd.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are comparing it to Rotten Tomatoes, and that was owned by NBC Universal, and there have always been, scandals somewhat of certain titles getting preference or, bad reviews getting buried, things like that. I think we could definitely be looking at something like that, and just, yeah, it's of course, there's toxic people everywhere, but I think Letterboxd, of all the social media, it does not, stick to some, crazy algorithm that keeps you, scrolling past infinite scrolls. You can kind of follow who you want to follow. It's very easy to control, and it's it functions as a diary. It's kind of for your own personal use. So the idea of just a company coming in and monetizing the shit out of that is just so depressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We're going to transition into news that could be exciting depending on who you are. We learned that Focus Features acquired a film called Elsinore, which is a biopic about Ian Charleson and is starring Andrew Scott and Olivia Colman. It is scheduled to come out in the fall. It's poised to be a major festival darling throughout the season, and it could be a major awards contender. And when I saw this headline, I didn't even know that this movie was a thing. I got very excited because I love Andrew Scott. He's one of my favorite working actors today. And if this is poised to be a major awards contender, could we finally see Oscar nominee Andrew Scott? I would love nothing more. Olivia Colman is also starring in this, Oscar winner, of course. So, yeah, this is about Ian Charleson, who was involved with Chariots of Fire, one of the Best Picture winners that I somehow have never seen, but I know the iconic scene of them running and the theme, cha 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 cha, and that's all I really know from it. But Andrew Scott, Olivia Colman, under Focus Features, poised to be an awards contender. Sign me up, please. What about you? What's your take on this?
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled, and definitely, if this could be an awards vehicle for Andrew Scott, let's get the campaign going right now. The other thing that's exciting is, I'm not familiar with this actor, his work really, but it apparently is going to be focusing on like the last few months of his life, which is the approach that I think you need when you're doing any sort of biopic. Like we don't want a cradle to grave, try to cram everything in there kind of story, and with a lesser known person. It's not like someone who we're all just waiting to see all the beats of his life or anything play out. So I think this sounds like a really interesting project. Like I would be interested anyway, but yeah, you have Andrew Scott and Olivia Colman attached, and I'm very sad.
Couldn't agree more.
Next up, we have something that I would also be very sad for. We got some announcements about what will be headlining at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. So Sean Heater's Being Human, which is her follow-up to the Best Picture winner, Coda, will be opening the festival this year. We also got news about Prima Facie, starring Cynthia Erivo, some other pictures that are going to be in contention. But yeah, I think that Sean Heater's new film is sort of the big headline here. Me personally, I really like Coda. It definitely, should not have won Best Picture that year. It was a crazy, weird post-COVID year. And I think that its reputation is a little bit tarnished because of that, because, it beat out so many other films that people would consider to be more deserving. But I think it is really a really good film. And so I've been excited to see what she's going to do next. So this will be following a disability rights activist, and so working in the accessibility sort of realm again, and I think she's got the potential to make another really great drama here. So yeah, Brian, what do you think about the film festival announcements?
Well, I'm very excited for TIFF. I've been to TIFF a few times, and hopefully we'll be able to go this year, depending on how things play out. But yeah, it's always exciting when the first batch of titles comes out, and the opening night films at TIFF tend to be a little bit of iffy question marks. In the years that I've gone to TIFF, I've gone 3 times. The only year that had a good opening night title was my first year in 2023 when it opened up with The Boy and the Heron. Obviously, that was a very anticipated for many people. Hayao Miyazaki's new film, Studio Ghibli, acclaimed, just like the buzz throughout that movie was electric. The other 2 years that I've gone, the opening night films weren't as buzzy, but this one could be different. I liked Coda as well. I don't think it should have won Best Picture either. I do think it is a little frustrating that people have put that movie down aggressively because it won Best Picture, and that's really unfortunate because that's not the movie's fault. The movie didn't predict itself was going to be a Best Picture winner. Like, it's not like Sean Heater's like, I'm making this film just to win the Best Picture Oscar. That was not the intention at all. It's a very good film. I haven't watched it since it came out, admittedly, but listen, we've had worse Best Picture winners. Just want to get that out there. But I am interested in this story. I am intrigued, especially because my guy Mark Ruffalo is in this. Dylan O'Brien is also in this. And then the other titles that they announced, Cynthia Erivo could be a possible awards contender for her, for sure. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to more films being announced at the festival. TIFF plays a lot of the major titles, a lot of the major awardsy titles. You get a lot of discoveries there as well. So, in the coming weeks, when more films get announced, we'll definitely be reporting on that. But, yeah, with this first batch of movies, I'm definitely interested for sure. And I am interested to see how this new film goes for Sean Heater.
Yeah, I am excited for Prima Facie as well. That was, I believe it's based on the one-woman show that Jodie Comer did on Broadway.
Yes, it is.
So really interesting how they're going to adapt that. And then also The Assassins, which is a Korean film, which is described as a political thriller. So, I mean, always down for that too. So I think it's shaping up to be like a pretty good slate.
Absolutely. And we got a few trailers that came out. One of them is for The Wrong Girls, which is actually directed by Dylan Meyer, who is the wife of Kristen Stewart, who also stars in this film, along with the girl's name that I can never pronounce. What is her name?
Elia Shawkat?
Yes, that. I need to start writing that down of how to pronounce it. But it's a stoner comedy, and a bunch of other great people are in it. I have the cast list pulled up right in front of me.
Lakeith Stanfield, I know.
Lakeith Stanfield. Lakeith Stanfield, Tony Hale, Kumail Nanjiani, Gina Davis, Kate McKinnon, Seth Rogen, who we're going to talk about today in the episode with the invite. It looks like a ton of fun. I'm really looking forward to checking it out. As someone who loves a good stoner comedy, this looks very much up my alley, and I love everybody in this cast. So yeah, I'm very excited for this, and I love the poster of this movie. It's their heads inside a bond, and I'm like, yeah, this is very much coded for me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this for sure, and I think it looks like a fun time.
It looks fun, yeah. The very like opening of the trailer where they're like, "Oh, we have to get rent money or whatever." I was like, it sounds exactly like one of them days from with Keke Palmer and SZA
Yep.
from recently. But it looks like it gets maybe a little trippier than that. It seems to be some drug tripping involved and looks a little more psychedelic. So yeah, I'm down for it. I think I'm happy to see. I like when Kristen Stewart dips into comedy. She's so good at drama and she's at directing now and everything. But yeah, I think this could be a fun arena for her.
Yeah, I like when K Stu does comedy as well, but I'll be seated for anything that she puts her name in because she's one of my favorites working today for sure. And we also got a new trailer for Dune Part 3, and oh my god, the talk of the town, truly. Everybody is buzzing about this trailer. I loved the first trailer that we got, but this trailer blew my mind even more than I anticipated. Bald Timothy Chalamet is making me like it's haunting me. The images are haunting me. And the imagery, oh my God, this is all that people have been talking about on Twitter the last few days since this trailer dropped. Very akin to something like Lawrence of Arabia. Linus Sengren is now the DP. Greg Fraser was unable to shoot this film, which is unfortunate because he did such a great job with the first two films. But I really like the style that Sengren is putting here to the point where throughout the trailer, I'm like, I didn't think I would say it, but I'm starting to vibe with his imagery a lot more than Greg Fraser's, which is crazy. The graininess, it kind of feels akin to something you get back in the 60s and 70s with those epics like Lawrence of Arabia, Ten Commandments. I really like the aesthetic here. I'm very excited to see how this film pans out. We got a bit more with Anya Taylor-Joy. We got a bit more of Robert Pattinson being the maniac that we all love him to be. Zendaya screamed from the top of her lungs. Javier Bardem being there, and everyone just doing crazy stuff. So I am so excited for this film. And I was like, do I even really want to watch the trailer? The first trailer gave me enough, but it's like, I know that these trailers don't give anything away, and I know that next week when the Odyssey comes out, they will be screening the prologue of Dune Part 3 in front of that. So it's like, why not have more Dune in front of me before I get the prologue in front of the Odyssey? So yeah, I'm excited. I know that you're not a big Dune head and everything, but like, thoughts?
Well, I'm curious about this one because my line has been I respect the series more than I really like love it, and so I mean this looks incredible. I had no doubt that it would. I definitely I think that has not been the issue at all in the last few films. That's what I find. Like I find them to be really impressive films. I just kind of struggle to connect emotionally with the story and with the characters. I find them to be a little bit like cold or removed. But I do think the conclusion could put it all in context and could make me higher on the series, or maybe I'm kind of at a baseline just. I can appreciate it, but it's not something that I like absolutely love. So we'll see. And I agree. I think that the look is slightly different, but still very cohesive. I know a lot of people are pointing out shots where it looks a little bit almost like nodding up Technicolor-ish and saying it kind of is also dipping towards a little bit of that like 80s fantasy, like it kind of nods to sort of like David Lynch's Dune or just movies of that era. I think that it's going to be an impressive looking movie. I'm sure that the performances are going to be fantastic. I am curious about the story. I know that obviously the whole talk was when the second one came out that like the next one in the series is weird and it's not going to be necessarily a conclusion of this story. But from this trailer and from what I would imagine, like the way that I could picture Denis like shaping the story, I think that they're gonna try to format this one into a little bit more of like a cohesive trilogy, and this is the big conclusion. So, which I think is probably a smart move just for the overall reception of it and everything. I think that makes it easier for awards chances too. Like if this is going to be the big, Return of the King moment, I think that they can expect to do pretty well with box office and with awards.
I still can't believe Avengers Doomsday is going to come out the same day. I genuinely think they should be afraid because I hate to say it. Yes, Avengers is a more like accessible property compared to Dune, but the fans love Dune. Marvel hasn't really had its fans out there lately, so it's like.
But Brian, they're going to have Infinity Vision. Like, whoa.
I think that's just during the Endgame re-release. I don't know if that's during
Oh, I thought that was
Doomsday.
their whole thing for Doomsday
Who
which is,
knows?
I don't know,
We
just
still don't
sort of
even
a
have a
marketing
trailer
thing.
for Doomsday, which is kind of crazy. But I do think that with Spider-Man coming out, they'll drop something soon.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
that makes
very
sense.
strange, but this is going to be the winning film for. I mean, like it's taken over all IMAX theaters. Like they're not even going to show Doomsday in IMAX because of this. So
That's why they have Infinity Vision, which is
whatever that
nothing.
whatever that means,
Yeah.
whatever that means. Well, that concludes our weekly catch up. Time to get into why you're here. Our reviews of Moana and the Invite. Let's get the spoiler alert turd out of the way and talk about Moana. Obviously, a live action reimagining of the celebrated animation from just 10 years ago. We'll talk non spoiler and then, I guess, segue into our spoiler thoughts. So, Veronica, how are you feeling walking into the live action Moana? I know that you're a big champion of the original animated, like many people, but I know you have such a personal attachment to it. So, how were you feeling walking into this remake, and how did you feel coming out?
Yeah, the original Moana is probably my favorite Disney movie of this century, I would say. Lilo and Stitch is maybe the only one that comes close. But it was 2016. Listen, it was peak Hamilton fever. I have always loved, before then I loved Lin-Manuel Miranda and continue to love him. And I just think that his work on the music of Moana is just like unmatched. I think that I think she's a great character. I just loved her from, the very first kind of trailers we saw for that, and a great story. I loved, the side characters. The Rock is iconic as Maui. I just think it's a really delightful story. It's been one of my favorites since I first saw it 10 years ago. So yeah, it's a little bit, obviously when I heard they were remaking it, it was just like, I don't enjoy the remakes. We've covered this extensively. Like they're clearly cash grabs. It's clearly like, why would you not just put all this time and energy into original stories that you can, create and bring in new audiences with? But they were doing it, and I was like, okay, I don't have very high expectations. And it was. I do think there are different approaches when you're looking at these remakes, and some of them, seek to like kind of course correct things that were in the original movies. Especially something like the Snow White movie, which was older and seen as somewhat problematic. And so it's like, you can change things, you can add songs, you can add characters. The Moana remake is just going like basically shot for shot remake. It's really not, which, I mean, I get it. Like, I adore Moana, so I can see how you don't really want to change anything. I think it's a pretty, tight, perfect story with perfect music. And so, yeah, I mean, I understand not wanting to change it, but then it's like, why do it? And, this is, I think, really the only difference. I think this one clocks in about 10 minutes longer, which I don't know, that could be like dealing with credits and stuff too, but I do feel that. I feel like it's the original movie, but just kind of moves a little more sluggishly. It doesn't look anywhere near as good. The performances, it just doesn't have any of the character of the original animation. Even The Rock, who was playing the same role, his wig looks like shit, which we all knew from the trailer. So it's just a little hard to take the whole thing seriously. Did I sit there and hate my time watching it? I mean, no, because it's Moana, and I was like, I mean, the music slaps, and it's still, the bones are still there of a really great story, but they just kind of stripped all of the creativity and care around it. So it's, not really worth existing at this point.
What can I say except fuck this shit? This was absolute garbage, and I knew that this would suck, but there was a tiny part of me that had hoped that this would be somewhat tolerable, but it wasn't. It was literally the exact same movie. They couldn't do anything to enhance it or like differ it up or spice it up or whatever. They literally made the same movie, but with human actors, a lot of CGI, a lot of shitty CGI.
Yeah.
This movie cost literally $250 million, and it looks horrendous. There's no soul, there's no flair, there's no color, there's nothing about this at all that makes it worthy of being watched in the slightest. If you want to watch Moana, go watch the original animated, because I rewatched that film right before watching this, and that film still holds up 10 years later. And on top of that, too, why are we getting the remake 10 years. It's been 10 years. I understand remaking something like Snow White. That came out 90 years ago. That's one thing and everything. But a film that came out literally 10 years ago, what are we doing? Come on. Of all the things to remake, you had to remake this. But because now they're remaking literally everything, because as you said, these are all just cash grabs. There's nothing about them that even make them worthy of existence. I do like the Cinderella remake from Kenneth Branagh. I think that's the best one. I know that that's not saying much, but that genuinely on its own is a very good film. The Jungle Book remake from Jon Favreau I think is solid as well, and the Pete's Dragon remake from David Lowery is also quite good. But most of these remakes are okay to bad. I don't know if I consider this to be the absolute worst of the worst. Maybe I do to an extent because it's been 10 years, so the necessity of this is nowhere to be found. The Rock phones this entire performance in. I feel so bad for the main girl who plays Moana, Catherine. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I don't want to butcher it. Lagaaya? I feel terrible if I butchered that name. She gives it her all. She's trying her best. She really is, but it just doesn't match what made that original so good. And yes, the songs are catchy. And yes, the story beats are still there. But I can't be connected to it because there's no soul at all in this film. So the entire time I'm sitting there watching it, I'm just so annoyed with what I'm seeing. In my head, I kept thinking of that scene from SpongeBob where SpongeBob is locked inside his house. He doesn't want to come outside. And Patrick makes a comment to Sandy, and Sandy looks so annoyed. That was my expression throughout the entirety of this movie because I felt nothing. I just wanted it to be over. It's not even 2 hours. It felt like it was 20 hours. That's how miserable I was watching this. I'm disappointed that this exists, quite frankly. The only good Moana property to me is that first one. I didn't like the second one at all. I didn't like what happened with the behind the scenes of that project and everything. This is just as worse, quite frankly. And I hate that this is a thing. I don't like it at all. And in the back of my head, too, I kept thinking of that interview that Dwayne Johnson did right when he was promoting the Smashing Machine. And he said that he wanted to be taken seriously as an actor and separate himself from doing these movies. Why the fuck are you doing this then? You have so much money. Do you really need to add a Moana remake to your payload? Get the fuck out of here, dude. So this was ass. This was terrible. I hate this thing so much, and I'm not happy that this exists. But everybody listening, you're getting the Bryan crash out, so you're welcome.
I didn't even cause it directly. It was not my fault. Yeah, I feel like The Rock didn't get the awards attention he was expecting for the Smashing Machine. He was like, all right, never mind. I take back everything I said.
Even though he shot this before the Smashing Machine even came out.
Oh, really? Was it?
Yeah, they shot this in late 2024. It was finished in late 2020. And Smashing Machine came out late last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the second one too, I think that one, it just would have been better served if they just kept it as a Disney Plus TV show.
Agreed.
Or just reworked it totally and actually came up with a more cinematic story that would have made sense. But yeah, it's the first one is just brilliant, and so it's obviously hard to follow that up, and so I wish that they would stop trying. But yeah, do we want to get into some specifics of what we did or did not like in this movie?
Sure. I mean, what is there to really spoil? It's the same fucking movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and the one thing when I heard that they were making a remake, I was like, the only adaptive choice that I would condone is that from seeing the first movie, I know I said, and I think other people said, like, I wish that Pua went on the journey with them because he's like such a cute little pig sidekick character, and he kind of just is there before she leaves, and then when they get back, and I was like, I bet they'll make Pua go on it this time, and they didn't even do that. They were like, there was absolutely no creative decision went into this. They kind of just said, let's run it back, and just went through the motions and remade the same movie. Yeah, and looking much worse, obviously, like we said. So I saw it in 3D, which I don't know. I don't think it really, and it was just I don't prefer 3D. It was just like the Showtime that worked best for me. But I don't think it enhanced it. I don't think it, at least they didn't play it up for that, which like some movies do. But yeah, anytime we're seeing the ocean, the sky, any sort of, it just looked like green screen. There were some shots like on the island and stuff when I think it probably was a little more slightly practical that I didn't mind the coloring on and stuff. Like it's obviously doesn't match the vibrancy of the original, but I was like, I guess. And but yeah, anytime any action looks a mess. Any, giant landscape or anything, it just looks fake. It's that kind of lack of effort or creativity that I, was kind of expecting, and unfortunately they just didn't do anything to pleasantly surprise me.
That's the thing. Like, if you're gonna remake something, you need to find a way of like doing something different. I'm not saying completely change the story. Like, obviously, stay true to the original and everything. But you're given all this money, and you could make it look really cool with the amount of money that you're given, and it just looks like trash. It looks like some work that an 11-year-old made on Premiere Pro or whatever. Like, with the tiniest budgets, it makes no sense how all these movies get churned out to look like the biggest schlock I've ever seen in my life. There's no style, there's no flair. The green screen is so bad, and there are so many moments where it was so apparent when I watched it. I watched it in IMAX. I didn't even bother doing the 3D. I was originally going to try to do a super late showing, but then I'm like, no, let's just get this out of the way now. Let's just get this over with right now instead of waiting until 10 p.m. to watch it. And yeah, I think I was able to tell during certain sequences where they did shoot on an island. I know that they shot some of this movie in Hawaii, and I would hope that they shot on actual islands. And when they did, I mean, I'm not saying the film looked amazing, but it looked better than what we were getting with the CGI
Yeah.
nonsense and everything. So, yeah, it's like it just looks so ugly. Like, and a lot of these remakes look ugly. But like again, it frustrates me that these movies are given so much money and you could create the best visual effects possible with that big budget because most filmmakers would kill to have 200 plus $1 million handed to them to put together a project. But they work with what they have, and sometimes these smaller films have amazing visual effects. I always think constantly about Ex Machina, which was made for like $20 million, I believe, and it had incredible visual effects, and it went on to win the fucking Oscar for visual effects over films with humongous budgets like Mad Max, The Martian, Star Wars. This little film that could was able to pull off something. This costs like 10 times more than that, and it looks like schlock. It looks like garbage.
And it's like, I mean, it's from the same studio as Avatar and stuff. Like, I'm not even a big fan of Avatar films, but they look incredible. And you could,
Well,
obviously
maybe
you
if
don't
James
have,
Cameron
yeah,
directed this,
obviously
it
you
would.
don't have James Cameron here working on it, but, ostensibly they could kind of use some of the same technology or make some of the same creative decisions or whatever. But yeah, it's just clearly careless. It's just clearly like, we just have to put this on screen. We just have to, show the exact same songs and story as what everyone loves already. And they just didn't want to take literally any risk or change with it. And yeah, even though I love the original story so much, and I'm like, I get it where you're like, I don't want to make any major changes. It's like, I would have preferred if this was totally different, if this was some, complete reimagining. But obviously, then you open yourself up to people not liking it, not knowing what to expect when they go to the movies. So we can't have that possibly. So yeah, it's just, there were little moments of like carelessness and stuff. There's in the opening songs when Moana is with her grandmother at like the water's edge and stuff. There's a moment where like the grandma splashes water on her and the camera pulls back and they're like not even near the water. They're just kind of like still up on the beach and just things like that. It's like, it's just so clearly not something that they put a lot of thought into, and you're just kind of supposed to watch it go by before your eyes and not give it another thought. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to get into like some of the performances specifically or any of the decisions there?
Let's talk about the performances first, since you brought it up on the table. What the hell is The Rock doing? Like, really, what is he doing? He looks like he doesn't want to be there. And it's crazy, too, because I think it was him who initiated the idea of this even being a thing. So it's like, you wanted this to happen. At least showcase that you want to be there, but you could tell that he is phoning it in. And, I like The Rock a lot. I like him. He seems like a wonderful, humble dude. And a lot of his projects tend to be the same, but he's a very likable presence in pretty much every project that he's in. Listen, I'm not saying that he has done an array of like acclaimed films or great films, but he has showcased that he is a capable performer. Say what you want about the Smasher Machine. I thought it was fine. It was okay, but I thought he was unbelievable in it. I actually really loved his performance in that movie. And, there was awards buzz surrounding that performance before the movie came out. And then it came out and the results were a bit middling and everything. I will be upfront in saying that if he had gotten an Oscar nom, I'm not saying that I would have wanted it to happen, but if it had happened, I wouldn't have been angry with it because I thought it was a really good performance. And you could tell that he was showcasing that he was more than just the wrestler turned actor. He was actually showcasing that he had a lot more to him as a performer, and I really commend him for that. But here, he gives in the most phoned in performance that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And when he was performing You're Welcome, oh my God, it just it was so hard to watch because it just looked so uncomfortable for him to do this and everything. So yeah, his performance just, ugh.
I mean, yeah, my favorite performance of his before this was the original Moana. Like, I think that his voice performance there is fantastic, and obviously, of course, augmented by very talented visual artists who create the actual animation. But I don't think that I've ever seen him, besides the Smashing Machine, really ironically stretch his muscles that much. And I think that, I don't know, I don't think he's like terrible here. It just feels like it's Maui drag. It's just him pretending to do what he already did 10 years ago. And not being set up with, anything. I think there are maybe a couple of extra jokes that are thrown in or lines that are slightly reworked, but for the most part, it just feels like he's reciting exactly what he did a decade ago. And so it's just not really, it just feels, it feels like a school play version of Moana, but it's not. It's this huge budget thing with one of the, biggest movie stars in the world. So, I mean, I don't think he's very good, but I also don't know what else he could have done to save it. I don't think that there's anything that would have at least The Rock is fantastic in this. Like, it's just a lesser version of what he's already done. We've already seen. So I don't really think that he's set up to success, and neither is anyone really in the movie.
The entire time I'm watching this, I know that he's attached himself to many projects that he really wants to flex his muscles in. We didn't talk about this in our news, but he actually just attached himself to star in the new film from Greg Cuidar, the guy who directed Saint Sing. So it's like, if that director could get like a Titanic level performance out of him in that, then I know that he has it in him. And he's supposed to work with Scorsese on one of his million films that he's attached to. So it's like, I don't think Martin Scorsese would cast Dwayne Johnson is something if he didn't think that he was capable. And listen, Dwayne Johnson, like, I didn't expect the performance to be groundbreaking in this either, but I was hoping that he wouldn't have looked like he was phoning it in, and you could tell that he was, and that's really disappointing.
Yeah, even just a little more energy would have helped. But then, moving on to Catherine Lagaaya, I believe. How did you feel about her as Moana?
She was clearly trying, and she definitely had a great aura as Moana. It's just that unfortunately the film surrounding her was the most soulless thing ever. So I feel like this movie didn't really help her get the performance out of her that we should have received from her, because Moana is a beautifully written character, and she's perfectly portrayed in the animated film. So, of course, it's like a very intimidating task to take on that character in live action form. And she's given the opportunity of a lifetime because, for people who weren't alive when the original Moana came out, this is now their Moana. And they get to experience this and they get to see a new discovery. And I think that she tried her best with the material that she was given. She had a nice singing voice, but again, there was nothing about the performance that really wowed me. But I could tell that at least she was trying, unlike Dwayne Johnson, who really didn't seem to put any effort into it. He's like, oh, I played this character already. Why do I need to do it again? So she, on the other hand, actually tried and put in an effort, and I commend her for that. And I hope that going forward, she's given more opportunities to shine as a performer, because I could see her showcasing a really great performance in a different project. So I wouldn't say that I hated her performance. I think she tried her best, but it wasn't something that I walked out celebrating.
Yeah, all respect to her. She's a young actor. This is like her first big role, like for sure. Certainly would not write her off or anything like that. But I didn't vibe with her very much. I think that she was kind of blank for a lot of it. I think, which again, who can blame her? You're probably acting off of a green screen and a tennis ball the whole time.
But also, it's like, are we blaming her or are we blaming the director?
Yeah, yeah, that too. I definitely a lot of the scenes, both her on her own and between Moana and Maui, definitely felt like an early take or something. It felt like it was kind of their first pass at it or something, and they just forgot to go in and deepen it or fix it or whatever. Yeah, a lot of it just felt. And again, I mean, maybe it just feels that way because they're just reciting the same words that we are all memorized 10 years ago anyway. So again, I don't know how much they could have done without rewriting the script to be something that's a little more inventive. But yeah, I didn't find her all that convincing or engrossing during any scene of like more intensity. I think she's a little bit blank there. I do really like her singing voice, and I think on some of the songs she has a slightly less musical theater sounding voice, which I like. I think because again, that's at least a slight change. I could detect that on some of her songs that I liked how she sang "How Far I'll Go." It was clear and crisp, but didn't quite try to mimic what L.E. Cravajo does in the original. So I wish, I mean, I would have, maybe they could have written her another song, but nope, they didn't want to change anything. Although there is a credit song that she and L.E. sing together. But it's just, I don't think that she was that great or acquitted herself that well. But again, I don't think that she had any opportunity to really.
Yeah, let's briefly get into how this thing is directed. So it's directed by Thomas Kail, who comes from a musical theater background. He directed the productions of In the Heights and Hamilton. He directed some episodes of that show Fosse Verdon. So he has dabbled in screen fare before, but this is his first feature film that he has directed. And obviously, directing a feature film is an intimidating task, but when your first film is this multi-million dollar Disney remake, of course it's a probably intimidating fashion, but I just didn't think that there was any flair into the direction. It all felt very soulless, and like you said, it seemed like a lot of it was just first takes. They couldn't do anything to rework anything, and it just looked lazy. It looked like he really didn't put any effort into directing this, and who knows if that's even his fault either. That could have just been the studio jamming down his throat and saying, just do what you want and then whatever. But it's frustrating because he has a very celebrated nature in the theater world, and then for him to direct this film, there was just nothing to it at all. And I was reading that for years he's been attached to direct another adaptation of Fiddler on the Roof. That might be better fare for him as opposed to this CGI heavy Disney film, but the directing here was not very impressive in the slightest.
Yeah, yeah, he is a brilliant theater director for sure. And so, again, I don't know how much we can put on his shoulders versus where his hands tied behind his back and they were like, just remake the original, like nothing fancy. So, yeah, I do think the performances are hurting and definitely could have, a better director maybe could have pulled something else out of them, but I don't think anyone was set up for success here. Except I will shout out I didn't mind Jermaine Clement reprising his role, because at least when he sang Shiny, he went with like some different vocal variations and stuff. Which again, I mean, I have the whole like soundtrack memorized from the original, so like maybe other people wouldn't pick up on that necessarily, but like I was like, okay, I see where he's trying to switch it up a little bit, at least give some alternate takes. And Moana's parents, I think, were well performed. They don't get a ton to do, but I felt a little bit of connection for them. I felt the woman who played her grandmother, I didn't as much. I don't know. Something about her there seemed a little awkward or forced or something. But yeah, I think that everyone was just doing as best they could.
Yeah, and going into this whole discussion about the remake approach and everything, when we look at these Disney remakes and everything, and I kind of want to dissect a whole bunch of them during this discussion of Moana. At least some of them, like you said at the top, try to incorporate something new and different. I think back to the Beauty and the Beast remake from almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit higher on that movie than more people, which is crazy because Beauty and the Beast, the original anime, is my favorite Disney film ever. Um, but at least in that movie, they tried to do something different. They incorporated that storyline about Belle's mom and everything. And I really appreciate that angle. And they incorporated a new song as well, which is great. So it's like, why couldn't this movie try to do something different? Like add another song or two. And again, not necessarily change up the story, but just incorporate something to give us an understanding of why this remake exists, other than just being a cash grab.
Yeah, I almost think the easy way is just add a song, even if it's not as good. Like it's at least something different. It can justify the slightly longer runtime. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I get not wanting to mess with a story that's already very popular, but just why do it then? At least just try something else different. And there have been less successful like something like Mulan, I think leaned way too heavy into like, let's make this an action movie, and like I
But at
don't think
least
that's
it
very
did something
successful,
different,
but yeah, it's a take at least. So even though it might be a less successful movie overall, like at least I understand that they were going for something. And yeah, I think Little Mermaid was kind of similar, like added in songs and different things like that. So
Can't forget the scuttlebutt.
Oh no, I did forget about it. Why did you remind me? Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of these approaches are good. I don't think there's any way to really pull, unless, like you said, like Cinderella, at least something that's very old, you can kind of give a more updated version. I kind of think it works better when, as much as I'm always an advocate for like casting an unknown and stuff. I kind of feel like something like Beauty and the Beast, I think was at least successful, or at least popular, because people were like, oh, Emma Watson, she'd be a great Belle. Like it almost helps to like have maybe a bit of a connection with the actor who's portraying this really well-known person. Like I don't know if there's something to that. I mean, again, it would be hard to find like a very well-known young girl to play Moana or anything like that. So not necessarily looking for something, but I just think there's something like these almost are only successful as like a fan casting come to life. And even that, I don't think that, I think that we can keep fan casting to online discussion, and we don't need to be making $100 million movies out of them. So
Yeah, and I'm looking at all these remakes and everything, and a lot of them do have all-star casts. Like the Jungle Book that Jon Favreau did, the only unknown was the kid who played Mowgli. Then everyone else who plays the animals, it's like you have Bill Murray, Idris Elba, Ben Kingsley, Lupita Nyong'o, Scarlett Johansson, Christopher Walken, all these known established actors, but it didn't distract what they were trying to do with the movie. I really commend them for that. Beauty and the Beast, that was like a huge all-star cast. I mean, everybody knew Emma Watson because she's Hermione, for goodness sakes. And then Dan Stevens, Luke Evans, Kevin Kline, Josh Gad, Ewan McGregor, Ian McKellen, Stanley Tucci, Emma Tyler. Like, you have all these household names, and even though that movie shouldn't have existed, especially that was like over 25 years after the original came out, it's like, okay, at least there's something here. They are trying to do something here. And, it has great costumes and doing this and doing that. And I just...
Yeah, or like I don't like the Aladdin movie, but it's like, oh, Will Smith is going to be the genie. That's at least something to,
Although
check
that
out
that was a very intimidating thing for him to tackle. And he vocally said, he's like, listen, I am not going to be like Robin Williams. I am not trying to replicate Robin Williams. I'm trying to do my own thing. And people who like to dog on that Aladdin remake and say that Will Smith was bad, I actually don't think he was bad in the role. He did his own spin, and that made it somewhat work. Because he literally could have just been copying Will Smith, but he chose not to.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think these are a lose-lose, and I wish they would stop. Obviously, we're not going to get that anytime soon, but I'm curious how much money this is going to make. I'm sure we still have Toy Story out, Minions are out. There's definitely
I
are
gotta
options
be honest,
for families.
I don't think this is going to make that much money. I really don't. I think it's coming out at a very interesting time where there's so many other movies to go out and see. I mean, people are still going to watch Toy Story 5, and we're just about to get the Odyssey. We're just about to get Spider-Man. It's like this might do decently for this weekend, but then after that, it's gonna plummet really fast.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, it's kind of the same, issue we're running into with Supergirl, where I was like, I don't think that's a very good movie, but it is also unfortunate that this female-led project is got way less care and attention as some other things recently, and is rightfully getting bad reviews. But I wish these movies were better tended to, and then could have a better outcome on the box office and everything. Because unfortunately, I have to root for them to fail, because it's like I don't want movies to be put out that are just going to take its audience for granted and just say run back that movie from 10 years ago that everyone liked, and we'll make
that's why they
money,
keep making them. I hate to say it, they sucker in people through their nostalgia, and then people keep going to them, and then they keep making them. So are we the problem? Is it our fault that these keep happening?
Well, the issue is I'm hoping that something will get better with the fact that the box office is genuinely doing much better this year. Because I think that the issue is that studio executives know that it's an expensive night to go out to the movies, especially for a family who's going to who they're hitting with this target audience. Like, I think that they know that they want to minimize risk as much as possible. So if they say Moana's in theaters, they want families to be able to go there and see like the exact Moana that the kids have been watching on Disney Plus for the last however many years. Like, they do not want any controversy, any creativity that could cause some people to really like it, some people to hate it, because then people feel like they didn't get their money's worth. And I'm just hoping that, like, if we prove that movie going is something that people are going to do regardless, people like to go to the movies and experience films that way, then we can learn that, like, okay, not literally everyone on earth has to be able to sit down and watch this movie in order for it to be profitable. Like, reduce the budgets a little bit, then you don't have to make quite as much, and you can actually put something that there's some creative force behind, that has a reason to exist, and not just like you gotta max out everyone's account every twice every year.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating that this is where Disney has gone. Disney used to put out so many bangers one after the other, and they still are on the animation side, and then of course Pixar is still doing a lot of the original work as well. And then it's just like, for the last decade and a half, ever since Disney took over Marvel and Star Wars, they've just been banking on the nostalgia. They've been banking on these big budget IPs, putting all the money towards them, and the results are very minimal, unfortunately. Like, we know that they can make great content, and they used to make great content back in the 2000s and the early 90s. They were pumping out amazing work for many, many years, both in the animation side and the live action side. And now a majority of their live action properties are just sequels, remakes, prequels, whatever. Like, they don't care about originality anymore. And I don't know who is the one that's greenlighting all these remakes and everything. You could make a good remake. It's not that all remakes are bad. I want to also stress that too. There are good remakes that exist out there, but 90% of these Disney remakes are not good. And you get these great filmmakers behind them, you get really good actors, and the results just are not good.
Yeah, I think the only thing we can do is keep going to the movies, especially for more independent movies, especially for original films, and show studios that, like, there's a big appetite for that, and you don't have to just mass produce the same thing that's been popular in the past. Like, I think at least this year has taught us, like, you can take some risks on unknown filmmakers, and like, subject matter that is not necessarily a guaranteed win on paper. Because some of the things that they think are going to be a guaranteed win on paper, they aren't. Like, we've got superhero fatigue now, and I'm sure there's going to be some Disney remake fatigue at some point. And so, I don't think they can ride this train forever, and hopefully that they will learn that soon.
I feel like the fatigue has been in the limelight for a long time, and yet
it has, but they still make money, these remakes.
I know. It's because I'm telling you, it's these people that aren't well versed in the cinema world, and this is all they go see. Like, I saw so many people in my personal life that are like, I can't wait to go see the Moana remake. Why would you be looking forward to this? Like, why? Just watch the original animated film.
Yeah, and I think that's why just people getting into more different kinds of films and being willing to leave the house and go watch it in a theater, that's going to be the only antidote that I see.
Yeah, and then you bring your children to the theater, and they won't stop crying during it, like they did for my movie last night when I went to go see it. Some parent had to take their child out of the theater like 7 times because they kept
I don't think
crying.
you can really complain about kids crying at Disney movies. That's kind of their turf.
Yeah, but at least cry when the movie's actually good. Like at Toy Story 5, when there's actually something being said, not when it's the most soulless thing ever.
Maybe that's why they were crying. Maybe they're a budding film critic, so.
You know what? All power to them. I don't want a Tango remake. I don't want a Hercules remake. I'm just looking at the remakes that they have coming out and everything. The Tango remake makes no sense at all. Like, as awesome as it is, as Catherine Hahn, mother herself, is in that movie, no, thank you. Just no, thank you.
That's what I mean. I feel like these are literally just fan casts come to life that they're gonna throw millions and millions of dollars at.
And then this Hercules remake, which Guy Ritchie is directing, which why? Like, Guy Ritchie was an odd choice for when they did the Aladdin remake. It's like, can you just do your silly little action movies, not touch a Disney movie and everything? And apparently it's supposed to be like a modern take on the story, and it's supposed to be a musical inspired by TikTok. I remember reading that not too long ago, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Don't you hate to hear
Like,
it.
is he going to be live streaming when he sings "I Can Go the Distance"?
I know I said I want them to take risks and make changes, but I don't know about that change.
Yeah,
Yikes.
it's awful. It's
That's a
awful.
monkey's paw situation.
It's terrible. Like, at least though we've gotten some decent live action Disney fare. Like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was a fun movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not a direct remake of anything, and it
No,
mixes
but
the
it
live
shows
action and
that
animation.
every once in a while Disney will do a live action movie that's actually decent
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
watchable.
Just,
But yeah,
you know.
this was just not it. And I knew that this wouldn't be it, but for some reason it was way worse than I could have imagined.
Yeah, it was about as I imagined, which was, I was not going in with high hopes. So, what did you end up with your rating for this?
My rating for Moana 2026 is 1 out of 5.
Yeah, mine also, yeah, important to specify 2026 because 2016 is a 5-star movie for me, but Moana 2026, I went with 2 stars because, again, like I was saying, I was completely thinking of both Supergirl and Mandalorian and Grogu because, something like Mando, it was definitely that feeling of like, this is so safe, this is so risk averse, this is like, either for Mando, they should have just put this streaming as a next season of the show, or for Moana, it's just like, we already have the original, why does it exist at all? And then for Supergirl, it's like that kind of thing where it just felt like it was going through the motions of being a superhero movie, and this felt like just going through the motions of being the original movie. So, yeah, I was definitely, we've seen this, many examples of this year. It is a pretty good movie year overall, but you're definitely getting, some flops like these, and so it's disappointing, but I am also like, again, at its core, it is Moana. I still got to hear the same songs that I'm obsessed with, and it's if you're just watching this in a vacuum, it would not be the worst movie I ever saw. It would not be the worst movie I saw this year. So 2 stars for me. It's negative, but obviously it's still Moana.
At least we'll never have to talk about this Moana again. Hopefully never. And hopefully they don't do a remake of Moana 2, because that would just be embarrassing.
They probably have to do that quickly before Catherine gets older or anything. So I hope not.
They're going to greenlight it as a TV show, and then they're going to condense it into a feature film.
Yeah, just run it back. A mess. Now we're finally getting to the good stuff. Here we have The Invite, the third film directed by Olivia Wilde. This premiered at Sundance earlier this year to lots of acclaim, lots of buzz, and the film is finally out in wide release for everyone to see. So we're here to break down if this is the film that you should be catching this weekend. We'll kick it off with non-spoiler thoughts and then move into full spoiler territory. So, Brian, what were your expectations for The Invite? Would you say it lived up to all of the hype and that it's worth running to the theater for?
I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I had heard a little bit about it when it premiered at Sundance, but the buzz was so high for it that it immediately catapulted to the top of my anticipated of the year list. I love everybody involved with the movie. We have Olivia Wilde not only directing it, but she's starring in the film as well. Then you have Seth Rogen, Penelope Cruz, Edward Norton. As actors, I love all 4 of them. I'm a big fan of each of them. Olivia Wilde as a director, mixed bag. Her debut, Booksmart, was one of my favorite films of that year. Don't Worry, Darling was unfortunately a case of the sophomore slump. It was well directed, but the screenplay that Olivia Wilde worked with kind of deteriorated the movie for me. And I was like, well, I'm sure she has it in her to deliver another winner, but who knows when that's going to be. Fast forward to 2026, we have The Invite, written by Rashida Jones and Will McCormick, based on a film that they made many, many years ago. I was very excited for this. A24 behind it. All the acclaim, like I said, easily an anticipated movie of the year for me. I went into it thinking that I was going to get this laugh out loud, absurd comedy, and that's what I did get for the most part. But then as the movie progressed, we got something completely different, and then I realized we were given what I think is the very best film of 2026 so far. This film was absolutely phenomenal. I've had the pleasure of watching it twice, and I think that it got better for me on the rewatch. I think that this is a masterclass across the board through its directing, its writing, and especially its acting. What this film was able to do so beautifully was ride a fine line between being super, super funny and then super poignant and serious, tackling all these themes that I certainly didn't think that they were going to tackle. And we'll get into that when we get into full spoiler territory. But I was really impressed with the energy that Olivia Wilde brought behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. It was very bold direction. I was so impressed with what she was able to do behind the camera. And the performances, honestly, you can make a case that this is some of the best work of every single one of these actors, to the point where I'm like, Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde might be my favorite performances that they've given. And Penelope Cruz, the best that she's been in a long time, and same goes for Edward Norton. Everyone is delivering their A game. Everyone is firing on all cylinders. It's super raunchy. It's super hilarious. It's very absurd, but then it's very sincere. It's very honest, and it doesn't shy away from what it's tackling. And I was really, really impressed. To the people that doubted Olivia Wilde's abilities as a filmmaker, saying that she was never going to come back after Don't Worry, Darling, when I tell you guys that she is back, she is 1,000% back. My favorite film of the year could end up staying my favorite film of 2026. We have a lot more films to come out this year, but honestly, with how much I loved this film and that I saw it twice, and I have this massively gigantic poster that I cannot fit into the frame of this recording, I have to say that this is my favorite film that I've seen of this entire year, and it's honestly one of my favorite films of the past few years. And I really think that's going to go down as one of the defining films of 2026 for sure. So I'm a humongous fan of The Invite. You need to go run out to watch this. Don't walk, run to your theater to go watch this. So that is my spiel about The Invite. Veronica, what were your expectations going into The Invite, and how did you feel about it overall?
We've already covered a little bit our feelings on Olivia Wilde's films prior to this. I absolutely love Booksmart, one of my favorite of the 2010s. And then Don't Worry, Darling has, a lot of its issues, a pretty bad script, even though there are great performances in there, and even though I think that Olivia Wilde's directing was not at fault at all, much like you said. But even through that, I was like, I was not out on Olivia Wilde. I think that she has always been a really talented actress. I liked even if I didn't love Don't Worry, Darling, I liked the material that she was going for. I liked her eye from what we've seen. She had that fantastic performance on The Studio as a guest star, playing first time we've seen her with Seth Rogen and everything, and probably where they built their first working relationship. And so even that was like poking fun at herself a little bit as this figure of a director. And so all of that going into the first I had heard of The Invite. I think that the trailer was really strong. I tried to not watch trailers so much, but I just think that this one, I was like, oh, it's a relationship dramedy. Like, I don't know that you're going to give away all that much, or I kind of wanted to get a sense of the vibe, and I just think it perfectly set the tone. I think that the movie kind of delivers on everything that you would that you would expect from a trailer like that. I love all four of these performers in many other projects, so I was definitely excited to see how their dynamic played out, how they bounced off of each other. And yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you. I think that this is like a plus across the board. The directing is Olivia Wilde. She definitely, I mean, like I said, I was pretty impressed with her directing already, but I do think that she clicks into a new mode here and kind of is it actually helps to simplify a little bit. She really gets into this is a largely one location shoot, and I think that they really use that to their advantage, and it plays into the entire the story and how everyone feels a little bit claustrophobic with each other, and performances are fantastic. I think that everyone is perfectly cast. I think that Olivia Wilde originally wasn't going to act in the movie. I'm so glad she did. This is one of my probably my favorite performance from her, and a good shout out to the script as well from Rashida Jones and Will McCormick. I think that that's one of the highlights as well. I think that even if someone else had completely brought this to life, I still think this would be a very successful movie, of course, but I'm happy with how it turned out now. I mean, just the biggest compliment that I could give it is that I left the theater wanting to have a marathon of a lot of those classic relationship dramedies that are, this is definitely inspired by. I've heard Olivia Wilde talk a lot about Mike Nichols, particularly Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And, I watched Carnal Knowledge for the first time a few months ago. I was thinking of that. And Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, some of the early Woody Allen movies, things like that, I think that are really like you almost, it just puts you in that mindset where like, oh, I just kind of want to like devour more of these movies that are so smart, so funny, so well observed about life. And I think that this like holds up with those classics there. So it feels very timeless. I think it's very successful. We talked a lot about movies recently, Minions and Jackass and some of this really broad comedy, which I can luck into sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people can. But this is like that really sharp observational comedy that, you know, I think that people laugh out of, sometimes because it's uncomfortable, sometimes because it's relatable, and sometimes because it's just like so smart and funny. And yeah, I just think that this really nails it on every level pretty much.
Let's get into spoiler territory
Yeah.
with the best film of the year. Let's just get right into it. I'm so excited to talk about this film. Again, I've watched it twice. I've had the pleasure of watching it on 35 print both times, and oh my god, there's so much to talk about with this movie. There's so much to gush about. I don't even know where to start. There's obviously a lot to break down with this movie, plot wise and everything. But yeah, let's get into full spoiler thoughts on the invite.
Yeah, so we kick it off with, I just kind of won me over from the very beginning. I love this opening sequence where we're sort of seeing Olivia Wilde, who plays Angela, and Seth Rogen as Joe, coming back from their days for the evening at home, and just the way that is shot, just different, like wipes in and out, and kind of segmented, and it feels very old school, very stylish, very like, you know, the 60s and 70s kinds of movies that this is influenced by. So yeah, even just from that, I was like, all right, I'm already pretty in. And then what did you think about that opening sequence into our first interaction between Angela and Joe?
Beautifully edited opening sequence. I loved hearing Seth Rogen's laugh over the title cards of the studios and everything. That was really funny. At both of the screens that I went to for this movie, as soon as that happened, you just see the Annapurna logo, and then you just hear him like underneath, and everyone is, of course, hooting and hollering in the theater, as they should be. And yeah, I really liked the vibe of the opening. Like you said, kind of feeling like a film from the 60s and 70s. Very Mike Nichols, Woody Allen, that whole vibe and everything. And I like the subtle touches of when they said the actors' names. It's like in order of appearance. I'm like, that's something that these filmmakers would have done back in the 60s and 70s. So I really love the subtle touches to it. I like the song that was playing underneath it. And I just like all the split screens and everything. And then the cool edit was when Joe came into the door, and then you see more light come in, and then you see more light come in, and I'm like, this is brilliant. Like, I knew immediately from that first opening that I was locked in right away, which is great. When you're locked into a movie that early on, you know you're about to watch something special. Hopefully, but thankfully the whole movie just kept getting better and better as it went along.
Yeah. So we kick it off with Joe walking through the door, immediately kind of collapsing on the ground and dealing with back pain, and as he's
Why'd
riding
you
his
get me
bike,
that bike?
the collapsible bike that is impossible, and we see him riding up and down the hills of San Francisco and everything, obviously having a tough time, and he is, you know, doing that while Angela is like frantically preparing for some sort of evening. And so we get the information that she has invited their two neighbors over for dinner, and this is the first that Joe is hearing of it. They just immediately, both directly about the situation, but also just kind of in a larger context, are just immediately bickering is kind of a soft word for it. You know, they're kind of immediately at each other's throats. They're clearly, you know, their relationship is in a tough place. They are definitely, you know, struggling to be on the same page about anything, struggling to communicate. That all comes across very, very cleanly, which of course, you know, culminates in a pretty big shouting match, and then the neighbors ring the doorbell, and the evening is set to begin. So yeah, to me this was like, you know, again, felt kind of classic. It felt like where I like a movie like this where you immediately are getting into specificity with characters. You're kind of getting a sense of who they are, what their issues are, rather than just a broad, you know, something where it's just about a getting together sort of movie where it's a bit more of a rom-com or something. But yeah, I immediately appreciated like how lived in these people felt.
Yeah, I completely agree. I liked the fact that from the get-go, we know that something is up with their marriage. We know that they're not on the best terms. We know that everything is rocky around them. Because when you watch a relationship drama or comedy in this case, they always spend a long period of time building everything out. And it's like, we don't need like a whole exposition dump of what's going on with them. I like how from the opening minutes, like we're not even 10 minutes into the movie and we already understand these characters so well. And obviously, as the movie progresses, we learn so much more about them together and separately. But I really like the decision of setting up from the get-go that, oh, something is up, and their dynamics are completely different from one another, where Angela just wants to kind of be by the book and do this thing to get people to like her. Meanwhile, Joe is just kind of vibing and cruising along, even though he's not exactly happy with where his life turned out. But we'll obviously break more into that as this episode progresses. But I really like this period before we get introduced to the neighbors. And yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. So now we get introduced to the neighbors. We have Pina and Hawk, who are played by Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. And we learn that right before they come in, they tend to be very loud over constantly having sex upstairs. And Angela is like, oh, we want to talk to them about the noise that we caused in our apartment with all these renovations that we did. And Joe's like, we're loud? Us? And yeah, so then we're introduced to these neighbors. And from the moment that we meet them, we're like, huh, interesting. There's something up about these two. And I'm kind of liking their vibe. And also, this is just something that's been apparent through many, many years. But I'm just going to say it right now. Anytime Penelope Cruz walks into a room, I just fall on my knees. She's like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. But honestly, everyone in this cast is like beautiful. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you definitely, I mean, we know that from before even seeing them on screen, that the one thing that we know about these characters, that they have really loud sex that Joe wants to confront them about. And Angela's like, she would rather die than have to bring that up to them. So immediately we have an image of them without even seeing them first. And then, yes, of course, they walk in there, two beautiful people and just kind of very, loving with one another, very kind of touchy-feely, and just in such stark contrast to Joe and Angela, who are like feel like they don't even know how to exist with each other without bickering the entire time. So just the contrast is clearly drawn. The moment when they walk into the apartment, and previously Angela had told Joe, like, make sure you take your shoes off. We're a shoes off household. And Pina and Hawk walk in, and they're like, do you want us to take our shoes off? And she's like, no, don't care. Either way, you do whatever you want. And that's such a great moment from Angela, just to show that like she's so insecure, and she's so like people pleasy that's even, it would have been fine to say, yeah, please, shoes off. Like that would not have been
Joe
offensive.
Joe is the complete opposite, where he's like, I don't give a fuck if you take off your shoes.
Yeah, don't give a fuck. And Angel just like shoots him that look and everything. And yeah, and just as we get to Joe did not see her text about having the party, and so he didn't pick up any wine. So she asks him to open their like specialty anniversary wine that's like 20 years old or something. And just the fact that she cannot deal with upsetting them or confronting them in any way, and like she'll direct that towards Joe, but like she's just so desperate for approval from these people.
She also tried to make a souffle, and then that ended up not happening. And I like the shot of her just throwing it away, including the tray that it's in.
So unceremoniously, yeah. She finds out that Pina has brought a delicious flan, and she just like dumps that out, and it's like burnt to a crisp. And yeah, just that she's putting so much effort in, and she's so desperate to impress these people. And you're getting the sense of like why she's so kind of broken and like searching for this kind of connection, even though she doesn't even know quite what it is or what it could be. But I just think that's a great moment for her. Yeah, we're seeing Joe just kind of he's a little antagonistic. He's kind of just very clearly showing that he doesn't really want them here, that they were fighting before they got here. He didn't know that this was happening tonight. He's just like kind of trying to send signals to them like you should probably head out. This is not the night for it. But and we start to get clues about Hawk and Pina and how they operate too, because they heard them fighting right before they were about to walk inside, and Hawk acknowledges that. Like he and Joe are kind of paralleled that way, where they're like want to be the truth tellers and are like fine saying what's on their mind even if it's uncomfortable. But he says something like we love a contentious environment. Like that's totally fine. You guys were fighting. Let's just acknowledge it. And I think that's interesting because it's kind of like as the movie progresses and everything, obviously they're Hawk and Pina have they're a very open dynamic. They talk through everything, all that. I kind of think that there's almost something that they're attracted to in the like toxicity between Joe and Angela, like the way that they are just so sort of not careful around each other. Like, I don't know. I think there's kind of, obviously Joe and Angela like think that there's something to their interaction with Pina and Hawk as like a way to shake up their relationship. But I almost feel like there's like a mutual attraction there of like two people who are so like kind and respectful and polite to each other versus like there's a bit of something there for like people who are just kind of at each other's throats. Like they kind of want what the other or are attracted to what the other has that they don't.
Yeah, I completely agree. You could tell that from the get-go. They're immediately infatuated with the idea of them going down each other's throats, but then they recognize that there's something going on with them deep down. Like they could see inside of them that there's something that isn't appearing on the surface, and they're really vibing with that. And yeah, that whole line about a contentious environment. Who says something like that?
He's honest. He's telling the truth. And I think just from the get-go, like as we're in this apartment like the entire time from the time that everyone enters. So, but within that, like Olivia Wilde is the director, and the DP, like they shoot the hell out of this one apartment. And I think that there is such great use of, framing, especially like Angela and Joe when they're in contention, like framing them in archways, using mirrors, using like window framings to just kind of make people look isolated as to match with it thematically. There is some great blocking for shooting looks. Like we get some moments when like Joe is behind Angela, so she can turn around and like shoot him a look when he is saying something that she does not want him to say, and just great kind of design of like where they are in the space and making the space feel. I mean, it's a big, beautiful apartment. Like obviously, it's much nicer than most people's, but just taking that space and making it feel even bigger, and just really like just playing out so well as the dynamics change and shift and everything moves around.
Yeah, the imagery in this film is outstanding. Adam Newport Barra is the DP of this film. He also shot The Last Black Man, San Francisco, which is a very underrated film, and the imagery in that is some of my favorite that I've seen in the past 10 years. And yeah, the block in here, and also a lot of that has to do with the production design too. Like the apartment looks great. It reminds me so much of my favorite environments, like homes and kitchens that I've seen in movies. It made me think of something like a Nancy Meyers project where we think of like the kitchens and everything there. But when I think of great production design work, I like to think of ones that feel like a character of its own. And obviously, because 99% of this movie is in this apartment, it feels like a character of its own because we never leave the apartment. It's only the first minute of the movie where we're not in the apartment. Otherwise, we're there the entire time of the movie. And I really love how everything is blocked. I love the structure of it. And yeah, there's certain moments throughout the movie where like you could tell that certain rooms are lit differently to evoke emotion. And I really, really like that decision on Olivia Wilde's part, but then also the DP's part.
Yeah, and we learned that this apartment is so beautifully furnished because Angela is. I kind of get the sense I don't think she has a job. Like I think she's kind of a stay-at-home mom.
She's a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah,
yes.
And so she's been like putting so much effort into redesigning this place. Like we said, they were doing renovations, and she's just kind of obsessing over the interior design. And we also learned that this apartment was Joe's parents, that they've been living in since, and so that creates a certain amount of insecurity for him as well. And so this comes up in discussion because Hawk is obsessed with the rug that she has chosen in the living room, lays down on it, is really vibing with it, and we kind of, you understand quickly that like he appreciates her creativity and taste in a way that Joe absolutely does not. And I kind of liked the moment in the film when we split the couples up. Like we kind of get the scene where she was giving Hawk the apartment tour, and then Joe is going to go smoke weed in his office, and Pina is like, "Oh, can I join you for that?" So we get this split off, and we're definitely getting the sense that obviously I don't know, I think that Angela is like super infatuated with Hawk, just the way that he's very flattering to her. He's kind of everything that Joe is not. He's very open and appreciative and observant, and all of those things. And we find out she went to art school but didn't really do anything with it. And then for Pina and Joe, I think that Joe is kind of feeling like, oh, she's a little bit cooler than I thought. Like, they're kind of just having a good time and talking pretty candidly. So yeah, I think that talking about her previous relationships and things like that. She has that line. I think it comes at this part where she's like, I was living on crumbs, and I think that no one can live that way. Which definitely becomes way more into play. But yeah, how did you feel when we got that sort of like change in dynamic when we split off into pairs and get to see them interact with one another?
Before we get into that, you brought up Joe's insecurities about the fact that he lives in his parents' apartment, the apartment that he pretty much grew up in and everything. It's also important to point out that while Angela is the stay-at-home parent of this relationship and everything, Joe's the one who's out there trying to make all the ends meet and everything. He's a musician who had a one-hit wonder back in the late 2000s. He was in a band, has these tattoos on his arm and everything, but now he's a struggling musician who now has a middling career as an instructor at this middling music academy in San Francisco, and he just feels very ashamed that he got stuck in this life and everything, considering the fact that he worked so hard back in the day, and now he's at a crossroads because he isn't doing what he wants professionally, and then his personal life is in shambles. He just feels like he doesn't really have any meaning to his life in that regard. And then going to answer your question about the choice to split them up and everything for this portion of the movie, I thought it was great. Never in my life did I think Seth Rogen and Penelope Cruz would work together. I didn't think that in my life. I'm like, oh, well, there we go. I love to see that and everything. But yeah, you could tell the dynamics are so different when he's with Pina. She feels a lot more understanding of him as opposed to Angela, who just berates him and puts him down and makes him feel shittier than he already does. But then, like you said, when Angela is talking with Hawk, she is like really infatuated. She's stumbling over words. She's like all like blushy and everything because, like, Edward Norton being Edward Norton, he just has this very cool, low-key vibe to him that it's hard to not fall in love with. And I like the whole sequences where they're talking to each other and they're making jokes with one another, and then him appreciating the arts and everything. And then the rug that you brought up earlier, that was a very funny moment. Where'd you get this? At a flea market? No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
We saw her bring that rug in as she's prepping for this party, so that was something that she specially found.
Yeah.
And sourced, yeah.
But yeah, I really liked this portion and everything, and them just talking and just getting a feel of one another and everything in that moment, especially for Joe's sake, because Angela's been more accepting of them being there, but Joe was just like, oh, I don't want them here, blah, blah, blah. They make loud noises upstairs. I don't like them at all. But then he starts like feeling a little more open with them, so I really appreciate that element. But yeah, this section of the film, I mean, listen, everything about the movie was great in my opinion, but this section was very well utilized.
Yeah, clever script here too, where we're kind of seeing Pina and Joe talk about relationship stuff and their past and everything, and then it cuts back to Angela and Hawk, and Hawk is saying something like, well, where do you see yourself in the future? Are you alone? Are you together on a beach and whatever? And so you assume they're also talking about relationship, and then cut to Angela, and they're comparing like slightly different shades of paint on the wall and like the different feelings that they evoke. So bonding over their interior design and kind of tricking the audience into thinking that they're talking about something deeper. So yeah, things like that. And then we get the four back together. I believe this is where Joe decides, like you said, he's feeling a lot more relaxed and open, and feeling like, okay, I could maybe like these people, maybe hang out with them. So he's definitely in the mood to try to bring up the loud sex conflict, and Angela is shoving flan in his face, trying to get him to not say anything. But then before he can, Pina and Hawk say that they have something that they wanted to discuss too, and they sort of jump the gun and apologize if they had heard their loud sex sounds. And so it's like, okay, like they're comfortable and willing to go there, like, all right. And quickly they start talking about who's making what sound. And I believe the first time is they say like, oh no, I think that one was Vanessa, and they're like, who's Vanessa? And so, yeah, they just tell them about how they have these sex parties. They, got into being open in their relationship. They go to sex parties. They have there's a preference sheet. There's a menu. Angela is very excited by that as like a very type A person. Yeah, they're just talking about the different like ways that they're open in their relationship. The way that they get jealous sometimes, but like it's almost like you have to just appreciate the joy that someone else is having versus like, thinking about yourself and your own insecurities or problems with it or anything. So yeah, we're like, okay, this is where it's going for them. I From just the trailer and just the like kind of premise of the movie, I kind of assumed it was going that way, and obviously just the way that they are as a couple, and that they would eventually proposition Angela and Joe as well. But did you expect it to be going in this direction, or were you like surprised how it all played out or anything?
Yeah, I was very interested to see what direction they were going to go with this. I was definitely I thought I had an idea of where it was going to go just based on the trailer and everything, but then obviously like it went in a completely different direction. I liked the whole sequence where they were breaking everything down and explaining it to them, and Joe and Angela were like, should we do this? Should we participate in this? Because they learned that the reason why they came down was because they wanted to partake in group sex with the two of them. And they're like, well, what do we do? Do we do it? Do we not do it? And what I love so much about this entire moment of one, it's absolutely hilarious. Just the revelation of like, oh, they participate in sex parties. Obviously, I didn't anticipate that angle because I just assumed like, oh, they wanted to have sex with them because that's what the trailer basically indicated. But there was nothing that even signaled the fact that these guys participate in orgies and sex parties and everything. So,
I mean, I wasn't surprised. I was like, yeah, they seemed like they would.
If I'm just going off the trailer, I'm just
Yeah.
like, well, I didn't expect that. But then in the movie, as it was being explained, I'm like, well, obviously now it makes sense. But going off what I expected going into the movie, I didn't expect that angle at all.
And they have that moment where I think Pina's like, yeah, no more than 10 people. And then Joe and Angela are like, 10. Like, oh my God. Like, yeah, they're definitely like, they're pros. It's not just something more casual for them.
Yeah. And this is obviously where we get that really, really great moment where my favorite moment of the entire trailer was the whole sequence where he's like, just to be clear, you, her, and me. And we got that incredible name drop where they were, every time he pointed at a name, you just got the name of the actor and everything, which I really loved. And of course, in the movie, it was still very funny. I said this from the very beginning when the trailer came out, the idea of, confusion about to be in the four-way, and Seth Rogen can make it funny because he's just like, what do you mean we're going to be in the four-way? Like, that's not what he says in the movie, but just his impression of that just makes me laugh so much.
Yeah, and I did have the sense of initially, like just in the first few moments of this like being introduced, I was like, they're middle-aged to younger couple in like San Francisco in like a progressive city. I was kind of like, are they that scandalized by the idea of that? Like, I mean, not that they would do it themselves necessarily, but just at the idea that people have open marriages and stuff like that. But I think at that point, their characters are well established enough that you understand that like they're both kind of so repressed and sort of beaten down by their own relationship and so like closed off to any possibility that life could be any other way that it definitely it plays out like you would expect it to. Like it makes sense that these are two people who just can't possibly imagine blowing up their life in that way or trying anything that outside of the norm because they're just so tightly clenched into what they've always been doing at this point. So it definitely made sense within context and like it just made their characters even more clear.
Yeah, 100%. And throughout this whole sequence where Joe and Angela finally open up to the idea of participating in this, Pina, who we learn is a sexologist, she's like, we want to do this. We really want to. And she's like, as horny as I am, tonight is not the night for this because I could tell that there's a lot of anger here. And of course, the two of them were like, there's no anger. We're happy. Like, we really want to do this and everything.
At this point, they both come around and are excited.
Yeah, exactly. So then they're like, all right, so we'll go separate ways, Pina and Joe, and then Angela and Hawk. And how did you feel about this sequence, seeing, we already talked about the sequence where they were getting the feel of each other moments before, but now this sequence where it's finally about to happen, where they're finally about to engage in sexual activity. How did you feel about the way that this whole sequence played out?
Yeah, I was wondering if like they were gonna go all the way. The moment before they split off and Hawk gives Joe condoms and they like cheers with it. It's like happy trails and yeah, I liked. I think it was kind of I got the most out of seeing the Joe and Pina interaction, where like he's just kind of like, okay, time to have sex now, and like it's just gonna, pull his pants off or whatever, and she's like, let's dance around, let's like feel each other a little bit, like let's make more of a moment out of this, and it's kind of the idea that this is a sexual experience. It's not just what he's probably thinking of as sex, and so yeah, just that kind of like they seem like they kind of have had maybe a bigger hurdle to get over, and then they're enjoying each other, they're having fun, they're kind of making it a little silly and goofing off with each other too, and then we get Joe falling into the bookcase and severely hurting his back again.
I liked what he said before that when she was basically taking off her clothes. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you for this. Yeah, just so appreciative. So we get a giant clatter as he falls down and hurts himself. And just as Hawk is about to go down on Angela, and Angela's like, he's fine. I think, I can hear him. Yeah, he's fine. And just, obviously needs a lot of help. And so both of their sexcapades are off for a second. They come out, and this is like, just something about the like break in momentum here just kind of soured Joe on the whole experience. He just kind of felt like I think he feels silly. I think he feels probably, insecure that he's feeling old, that he fell down and hurt his back when he's trying to have sex with this beautiful woman. And this just from here, like everything just kind of turns for him, and he's just so out on this whole venture, and kind of, ruins it for everybody a little bit. And I think everyone just, this is kind of where the movie shifts into way more of a drama, like way more of like, let's get into some really deep-seated issues here, and figure out if the central marriage here is like something that is worth saving. So did that turn come as a surprise to you? Were you looking forward to the fun sex romp, and then it got a little deep and dark, or did you welcome that?
I mean, I did not expect that at all, because I really thought this was just going to be a comedy throughout the entirety of the movie. I'm sure there was going to be some drama sprinkled throughout, but I didn't think that it was going to like halt the comedy and it wasn't funny anymore, and it was very poignant and honest and sad, and I'm like, where the hell did this come from? Like, what the fuck? But I was really glad that they did that shift, and I'm all for whenever something balances humor and sadness. And I thought this did it beautifully. Like the last 25 minutes of this movie are so incredible. Because again, we expect one thing when we walk into the movie, and we got something completely different. And when we got to this portion, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I totally understand what you're doing now with this and what this movie truly is about. I thought the shift was great. It was definitely jarring for maybe about 5 seconds for me, because again, I wasn't expecting that at all. But I thought as it was playing out, it was really, really great. And then we'll get to it when we talk about the actual ending of the movie. But everything, the way it played out, was so beautifully handled. But this whole portion where they finally got even more open with each other, I was impressed.
Yeah, I think it was just very, well observed, the way that, again, like I said, kind of one thing could just go wrong. Like, he falls down during this sexual encounter, and it just kind of ruins the mood for everybody. And the way that can so quickly turn into like, this evening is messed up because like this whole marriage is messed up, because, it can just kind of like snowball out of control. And the issues can just come up and everything. And, we can talk more about specific performances, but I think particularly in this section of the film, you kind of have everyone firing on all cylinders. Like you have Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen, who they're in like the, deep dark depths of these characters, and like digging up the most painful stuff. They're really hurt. They're really angry. They've got all of that going on. You've got Edward Norton does this monologue, which apparently he asked Olivia Wilde if he could do, to kind of give his backstory on his character, and he sort of like wrote/improvised it, and so he's got like a really big moment there. And then Penelope Cruz, I think, kind of has the hardest job in this section, where she's essentially just playing the therapist now. Like she's just being sort of their marriage counselor. And I also heard Olivia Wilde talk about how Esther Perel was a consultant on the movie, and it like she has a podcast where she does like therapy counseling with couples and talks a lot about sex and relationships. And like this movie dangerously could dip into a therapy session where it's just like these aren't real characters, they're just kind of talking about issues, or it could get a little preachy or something. So like in this moment, Pina she kind of has to function as like serving the ideology of the movie, deliver a lot of wise wise conclusions and impart wisdom on them while also still feeling like a real character. And again, same as before, I feel like at this point the characters have been well established enough that like I trust them to go here, and like it still feels true to who we know them to be so far. And I think that like Penelope Cruz, she has to be fun, she has to be like deep, she has to be smart, and but also strict, because like she's kind of she has like her very strict boundaries. And I think that the one thing that I don't know was not that it didn't ring true or something, but it's just maybe a little bit weaker. There's that moment when like we see Pina and Hawk have a bit of a conflict. Hawk is talking and Pina tells him like, just shut the fuck up, you're not listening, you never really listen to stuff. If anything, that felt like slightly not out of nowhere. It just like I didn't really see that seated quite as well as the stuff with Angela and Joe, and it kind of felt a little bit like just a moment for them to be like, oh, okay, this couple isn't perfect either. Like they also have their shit and stuff. So I don't know. If anything, that was like the one maybe weaker moment, or I either wish that was built up more, or that it was like not so contentious, where she's like yelling at him. Like it could have been subtler or something. But I don't know. Did you bump on that?
I totally agree with that. I will say that I didn't mind that inclusion very much, but I completely agree. There was a part of me where I was like, did we really need this? I appreciate the fact that they were showing that, oh yeah, this couple isn't perfect either. But like you said, maybe if they built that a little bit more, or honestly, if we didn't get it at all, I would have been fine with it. But I think it was nice to remind the audience that, oh yeah, just because this couple appears perfect on the surface doesn't mean they're actually perfect, because we always get these couples that we all know in our real lives that just act like they're the most perfect couple and everything seems sunshine and rainbows and peachy keen with them. But then you realize that underneath all of that, there is something going on. And who knows, maybe this was just a brief little spat, but I liked the idea of including the fact that, oh yeah, they're not perfect either, because you have Joe and Angela, who we know from the beginning are not in a perfect spot at all. But when we meet Pina and Hawk, everything seems great for them. But I liked the little touch of them showcasing that, oh yeah, they're not perfect. And it also made for a funny sequence too, where she's like, your Spanish sucks.
Yeah,
me more.
He looks so pleased with himself to be speaking Spanish like throughout the whole movie. It's very well done. And I almost feel like that was accomplished earlier in the movie when I think it's when Pina and Joe are off together, and she says that they've only been together for about a year. Like you kind of just assume that they're in like a long-term relationship. Like
right.
I feel like from that line alone, you're like, oh, like you guys don't know anything. Like this, like
right.
a year-long relationship where you're open and you're doing all this stuff. It's like that's just such different dynamic from Angela and Joe, who've been together 20 years now. They have a kid, they're married. Like just it kind of, you already got that sense of like, okay, we see that like you're in different spots, and like it's I would be curious to know, as Pina and Hawk go on and continue their relationship, like do they also slip into any of these issues, or obviously they're fundamentally different people too, but I just feel like that was maybe the one thing that was not as completely impressive as everything else. But yeah, digging into the Joe and Angela conflict, how did you feel here? Were you like, anyone is necessarily in the right, or did you feel like you could kind of see where everyone was coming from? Like, how did you feel once they started like really digging into the depths of their relationship?
I was like, I don't know who to side with, and I think that the movie doesn't force us to side with anyone, because we understand where both of them are coming from. It made me think a lot of one of my favorite films of the past 10 years happens to also be a relationship drama, and that's Marriage Story. For me personally, I know that everybody has their own take on the movie and everything, and we don't have to spend too long talking about this, but for me, every time I've watched that movie, I've always appreciated the fact that, again, this is just my opinion, to where the movie doesn't tell you who exactly to root for. You feel bad for both characters, but then you can also recognize that there are flaws within both of them separately. And in these moments where Joe and Angela are opening up about their problems, not just with themselves, but with each other, you could sense that nobody is necessarily in the fault because both of them clearly have tried, but it just isn't working out. And I thought it was really effectively handled. And I was so impressed with these two performances because Seth Rogen is a guy who obviously has had a long marriage and everything. And Olivia Wilde, she's had very public relationships that have been very publicized and have been ended very badly. And I know that she has stated that, like, she didn't hop onto this project because of some relatability that she has within this story and everything. But I felt like I was a fly on the wall this entire sequence. I felt like I was a fly on the wall the entire movie, but this moment where I kind of like took a step back because I was just so impressed with how they were able to tackle all this. And yeah, just learning about all the resentment that they have for each other, and then the fact that they haven't had sex in a year. It's just like it was very hard to watch, honestly. And even the second time watching it, I'm just like, this is insane.
Yeah, I definitely think, you mentioned Marriage Story. I kind of think that this balances almost a little bit better than that. Marriage Story, I remember feeling like you kind of get the sense that, like, he did everything wrong up until the divorce, and then once the divorce starts, like, she does everything wrong. Like, it felt a little, like, skewed in that way. But
that's a fair take. That's a fair take.
Yeah, that's how I remember feeling about it. But this is, it almost, you can kind of pinpoint certain things of, like, where issues start or everything. I think the clearest and most, like, articulate thing is when, Angela's pointing out to Joe that, like, you used to love music, you didn't make it big as a rock star, but you still get to do music for your job every day. Like, you get to, teach kids at school, and you have a daughter who adores you, and you get to live in this beautiful place, even if your parents left it for you. Like, just the idea. And, I was definitely thinking the whole time, like, God, this gorgeous apartment. If I was like, if I had a marriage and a stable job and lived in this apartment, like, I would be pretty, fucking thrilled with my life. I think we all think that we would be. And so the idea that, like, a lot of this stems from Joe's insecurity or his unhappiness that, like, he's not winning life on his own terms. He's not doing it as he would have wanted to. Maybe he would have liked to live somewhere else, but this is what his parents left him, and so that's what he has, even though it's gorgeous and in a, very desirable city and everything. And his job is like, maybe the love of music wasn't what was driving him the whole time. Maybe he did want some element of fame or financial success or whatever, and it's like, he's not dealing with those issues, and in particular, it's like in a locked box emotionally and literally. Like she says, Angela says that, like, nobody plays the piano, nobody, like, plays any of his old albums. Like, it's very much something that,
everyone
like, we can't
has
even
to tiptoe
acknowledge
around this piano and everything.
Exactly, yeah. So it's it's something that he is not dealing with, and a lot of the issues are kind of stemming from that, but then also Angela is, not willing to challenge him on that, or, and I kind of get the sense that, like her being a people pleaser with Pina and Hawk, she's kind of like, she's not willing to actually get at that confrontation that they need as a couple or as people. So, she's happy to dig at him for the little things, for not taking his shoes off and for not picking up the wine, but, she's not really gonna dig into what's actually challenging their marriage and their relationship. And that's that, they both lost touch with themselves as people. She has this art degree, and she's only putting it to use by, obsessing over their interior design and trying to, kind of get her creativity out with only that outlet, and not by seeing anyone else. Like we said, they don't have a lot of friends over, they don't go out much or anything. And then Joe is, he's just lost touch with music as a passion. He's lost touch with anything that makes him as a person happy. And so it's kind of that sense of, like, unhappy people can't just magically make each other happy. You have to kind of be responsible for your own happiness. And ideally in a relationship, if you sense that from your partner, you are kind of, going to prompt them into exploring that and figuring that out and getting to the root cause of issues. And I think by the end of the movie, they've definitely, dredged up the issues. But is it solved? Is it going to be resolved moving forward? I don't know. Do you want to talk about the very, very ending of the movie?
Before getting into that, there's just one line that's very important to bring up. The last thing that Pina asks is, why are you still together? Mm-hmm. And they say, for their daughter. And she's like, well, how do you think you don't think she knows what's going on? You don't think she senses it? unless you guys are willing to work this out, this relationship is over. And then that's it. And then they leave. And then
Very,
the
very
ending.
suddenly they leave. They sort of
Yeah, it was
ghost them.
weird too. You didn't hear the door close or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was a tiny second where I shit you not, I was like, please tell me that they weren't just in their heads.
I saw some people talking about that. I was like, I didn't read it that way. Like, I see how you could read it that way.
For
It's
a
like, I
split
didn't.
second, that's what I was thinking. But
It
then
felt like
afterwards, I'm
they
like,
were
no way. If that were the case, it would have ruined the whole movie for me, quite frankly.
Yeah, that would have been too. I think it was kind of like simultaneously like our work is done, and also like I don't want to be here for the fallout of this. Like, let's get the hell out of here. So that was how I read it.
Yeah, exactly. She didn't even take the dish that she washed.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to leave that behind? Okay, whatever. So yeah, the ending happened. Let's just paint a picture of this sequence. So they have this very intimate final conversation with one another. They're like, "Oh, we're going away at this time. We need to figure something out with that." And Joe is like, "Should I sleep in my office?" And she's just like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to bed." And then they go to bed. He goes into the office, plays this beautiful song on the piano. And then she eventually joins him. We get this beautiful shot from the window, which the shot composition in this is fucking gorgeous. It looked beautiful and everything. So we get this very intimate moment. They look at each other, they smile, and then the movie ends. Haven't seen the movie twice. First of all, I think it's a brilliant choice to leave the ending open-ended. I like the idea that we don't know what happens. I think any other filmmaker would have explicitly told us what would have happened with them going forward. And I like the decision because it leaves you thinking, because in the last almost 2 weeks since I saw this movie for the first time, I've read multiple theories. I've heard from different people of what they think is going to happen. People think they stay together. Some people think this is the end. I kind of want to get your interpretation first before I give mine. So for you, do you think they work it out, or do you think this is officially endgame for them?
My immediate reaction was like it could completely go either way, and I haven't really moved from that. Like, I don't think that we get any indication one way or the other. I think that, when Pena says to them earlier something about like, either you have to change something or this relationship is over, I do kind of get the sense that like that could mean that the relationship continues moving forward, but it's different. Like they move into a new phase of their relationship. This sort of like their old relationship spiritually is dead, and now they're moving into a new phase. Like, I definitely get the sense that that's what it could be. Them. He's making that first effort there. Like I was saying, I think that a lot of their issues are stemming from his professional insecurities and his feeling like he's not a success in life, and the fact that he can go over to that piano and play it again, not for financial success, but just to acknowledge that like this is something I love and want to do. Like that's him sort of extending an olive branch and being like, okay, I'll be a little less uptight about all of these issues that I have, or I'll learn to get past them. And then, we could have heard that and she stays in the other room, but then she extends an olive branch and she goes in to play along with him. And so I really think it could go either way. I don't feel definitively one way or the other. That could be the start of a new chapter, or that could be like, okay, we've learned about ourselves as people. We've learned about how to be more honest moving forward, and this is the end of our chapter together, and we're just we're going to be better adjusted people moving forward, but we're going to move forward separately. Like, I don't feel one way or the other. I really think that you could take it either way.
Interesting. I don't know how I feel either, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
I don't think you have to pick one or the other.
When I got out of the movie the first time, I remember sitting on the subway. I was so sad after watching this movie. Like, this movie really fucked me up. I went into it just thinking I was gonna laugh the whole time, and I did, until I didn't. And I'm just like, that was just so beautifully constructed. I mean, you can make a case for both of them. You can make a case that they do find a way of working it out, but then you could also make a case that they don't work it out. And if this was their last moment together, it just breaks my heart. It just really breaks my heart. And I don't know. I don't know, quite frankly. And I've watched the movie twice, and it's like I don't know what could be the end game. I would like to hope that they work it out. I really do. The optimist in me likes to think that they do find a way of working it out. But then at the same time, if I'm being realistic, I don't know if they work it out. What they said to each other was really bad, and there's no going back from that. So it's like, can you really move forward after everything that was said?
Yeah, I don't know, that's interesting that you felt like deeply sad about it afterwards. Like I definitely did at moments throughout the movie, when they're just like, digging in the nerves and digging each other's nerves so badly. But I don't know, leaving, I kind of feel like one way or the other, it's a little bit of a happy ending, at least happier than where we meet them, because either
That's
way,
fair.
they started to like do the work of knowing themselves,
Right.
and whether they move forward together or separately, I think they're both going to be happier people either way.
Yeah. And then I guess more so like it wasn't necessarily just the sequence of events that made me sad. Like yeah, I was sad and everything, and like the piano music, it really got to me. It was very emotional and moving and
Yeah.
everything. And then they had the fucking nerve to put on screen for Diane, and then I lost it. The nod to the tribute to
Yeah.
Diane Keaton,
Thank
and I'm
you.
like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the fuck.
Yeah, yeah, no, that and it's a beautiful, I know Olivia Wilde like cares a lot about her, and this is definitely that sort of movie that she would have thrived in and everything. So yeah, it's just again, I feel like with this movie there's such a like acknowledging of the history in which it exists, like standing on the shoulders
Yeah.
of giants that have come before it, and yeah, like I said, I think that it holds up against all of those big classics, and it just feels so timeless. It just feels like they could have made this movie in 1972. It feels like they could make it 25 years from now. Like it's just really getting at a lot of things that we all know and care about.
Yeah, the original film is called The People Upstairs, came out in 2020, and they've already remade it. This is
Yeah.
the fifth remake of this story. They did an Italian version of it, they did a Switzerland version of it, they did a French version, a South Korean version, and now here we are with the American version with the invite. So this is a story that could be adapted many times. And it makes me wonder too. I'm like, if this came out, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, who would be in it? I kind of want to play this little game with you. Like, say they made this 10 years ago. Who do you think that they would have cast in this? Or like, who would be your dream cast for the invite? Because I mean, everybody is perfect in their roles. But if you had to pick like current actors, like who would your dream cast for the invite be? Like
I
who would
did
play
not.
the
Yeah.
older couple and who would play the not as young but younger couple?
I did not think about this at all. Give me a
Well,
minute. Do you have any
to be
ideas?
honest, I didn't even think about it until, and now I'm like, let's play a fun little game.
I'm like, just the very first thing I thought of when you said that, I would like to see Tom Hanks in the Seth Rogen role. I feel like you wouldn't necessarily think of him, we all think of him as so lovable, but like he's definitely played roles when he was younger where he was like gruff and could kind of be like, I could see him really doing that, like,
Do you mean
shutting
like
down
current
about.
Tom Hanks or like Tom Hanks from like
No, like
20 years
young,
ago?
yeah, like
Yeah.
like I don't know, 80s, 90s Tom Hanks or so. Like I could like that would have been interesting, I think. So I'm trying to think of other actors from around that time, but
I could see like 2000s or like early 2010s Tom Hanks in like the Edward Norton role. That would be kind of
true.
funny, like a
Yeah.
very interesting juxtaposition and everything.
Yeah. I don't know who else. I'd have to think about it for a second.
I would have to think as well. It's really tough. I wanted to just see if you had an answer because then I could have maybe gone off it and everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting too to think about because it's like I don't know if you made this in any decade, I could be like, oh, this actor could play this character or that actor could play that character. It'd be really, really interesting to see how that's all breaks down and everything. But there's a few things that I want to touch upon with this film before we get into predicting its awards chances and everything. Like just to quickly go through, we've said it throughout the episode. The performances are fucking spectacular. For me personally, again, this is I think the best that Olivia Wilde has ever been in front of the camera, and the fact that she directed it too says so much about how talented of a performer she is. She is so funny. She does all these expressions. There's just these moments where Joe says things that piss her off, and we see this expression on her face, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm laughing so hard. It's just that her face acting is so outstanding in this, and I've always liked her as an actor. I've always enjoyed her presence on screen. But this really is my favorite performance that she's ever given. And it's also my favorite film that she's directed personally. Like, Booksmart, it's like you could change it and everything, but this like really gravitated a lot more towards me than Booksmart did. And then Seth Rogen, honestly, if it's not his best performance to me, it's like top 3 performances for me. This movie kind of made me go, if people still doubt him as a serious actor, they need to watch this. Because, like, he's obviously hysterical here. Everything that you love about him, he brings to this role. His very funny persona, the loud noises that he does, and the mannerisms that he brings. But then there's a lot of like poignancy underneath that, and I really appreciate that. So for me, this is maybe my favorite performance from both him and Olivia Wilde. And then, like I said, Edward Norton, honestly, the funniest that he's been in a long time. Underrated comedic actor. He is like, a lot of people think of him as this great method serious actor, and he is great at that. But he's also a really gifted actor when it comes to comedy. All the stuff that he's done with Wes Anderson, and I thought he was so funny in Glass Onion. And then here, he's incredible. He's so funny. That whole sequence where, yeah, he gives his monologue and everything, and then we learn that his name is Howard. His name is Howard. Little Howie. But that whole moment too where Peanut got very serious, but then we just cut to Hawk emerging from under the couch. He like was on the ground the whole time, and then he stood up. It's so funny. And Penelope, yeah, like wow. Beautiful, hilarious, heartfelt, just beautifully multi-layered performance. Just loved her so much. But yeah, I mean, who would you say gave your favorite performance in the film, or is it hard for you to choose?
Second, what you said about everyone, definitely. But I have to give my MVP to Olivia Wilde for sure. I think that like just the way that, and again, I'm saying, I almost think that she could have. I think she was approached to originally play the Penelope Cruz part, and I was almost like I could definitely see that. Like she could be the more sexually fluid and open kind of crunchy kind of person. Like you could definitely see that for her. She's could totally pull that off. And I think it's actually a little bit of a stretch for her to be as like supermodel beautiful as she is and play this person who like you do genuinely believe that she is insecure, that she is like so repressed, that she like just the cycle that her marriage has been on is just kind of like held her down and she's not been willing to do anything about it. I just really bought all of that from her, and like I wouldn't naturally think, I wouldn't see this part on paper and think Olivia Wilde necessarily. So I really think that she like stretched herself that way. I think that she really conveys the like anxiety of this character so well. We get a moment where she has like a little bit of a panic attack, and again, this is like this is over having a casual dinner with neighbors who you're a little bit nervous around or want to impress, and like she so believably is that kind of person who like this feels like life or death to her, and so yeah, I don't know, I think that she just really blew me away with, and then of course she's always been a great dramatic actress too. I think that she nails those scenes as well. I love her dynamic with Seth Rogen. I think that they are just such a believable couple and have like this great rapport. She talked about in an interview that there was I think 2 scenes in the movie, 2 moments when she broke and laughed at something that she wasn't supposed to, but they kept it, both things that Seth Rogen said, and they kept it in and stuff because she said she actually kind of liked it because it's like you do get that sense that like they still make each other laugh, and that's sort of what some sort of foundation that the relationship is built on, even if it's deteriorated so badly. So I just think that she's my MVP performance, but also just her entire like direction and sensibility, I just feel like is all wrapped up in this movie, and I just think that she's like just unstoppable from here on out.
I'm so glad that she didn't play the Penelope Cruz part, because then it would have felt equivalent to what she just did in I Want Your Sex, which is coming out later this month and everything. Right. And it's like, I don't want to see her play that kind of role 2 times, because you watch this and then you watch I Want Your Sex, very different performances from one another. And I really like the fact that she's showcasing her muscles as an actor very differently. And of course, she's directing this as well. And it's always difficult whenever a director directs themselves. You always wonder how they're able to get a great performance out of themselves. If they're able to do that, then they're a capable actor. And I think this finally reminded me that, like, this and I Want Your Sex both in the same year, I'm like, no, she genuinely is a really remarkable actor. And yeah, she's been in a lot of things that I've liked, but I've never walked out of a movie or a show or whatever with Olivia Wilde and went, wow, she was like the MVP of something. And even though she wasn't my favorite performance in the film, she was still unbelievable. I think for me, Penelope Cruz was the MVP of
Yeah.
this ensemble. She is so lights out in this. She's incredible. She's always been an actor that has fired on all cylinders, but she is really doing something else here. Everyone is great. It's hard to pick a favorite because they're all
Yeah.
equally fantastic.
And it's all about their dynamic, and they each bring something very different to the table, and so it's all about how they play off of one
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, and then we brought up the cinematography for it. Beautifully
Mhm.
shot on 35. Gorgeous imagery here. The production design is wonderful. The score, the music by Devonte Hayes or Hines, I think that's his name. Incredible. Also known as
Mhm.
Blood Orange, by the way, which I didn't even know that was the same person, which is crazy. But I love this score. I already ordered it on vinyl, and I can't wait for my vinyl to come. I'm so hyped to listen to this over and over again. And the editing, it's so quick. It flies
Yeah.
by. It's paced really well. When it has to slow down, it really slows down, which I appreciate. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels inorganic when it comes to that. And I didn't even realize until after the movie ended that one of the editors is actually an editor who frequently works with Yorgos Lanthimos. So I think it's interesting to see him jump from those very bombastic films to something a lot more intimate and grounded.
Yeah, yeah, good shouts all, and yeah, I would say yeah for the editing, it is you do get a sense of like it does elevate what is such a small intimate story. Like it is pretty like muscular filmmaking, and you're definitely you're feeling like there's a real visual sense at play and everything. This is the kind of movie where you could just like have kind of a static camera and just let it play out like a play, and it would still be pretty invigorating, but like this just like brings it to a new level, I think. Yeah, I'll shout out the costumes too. Obviously, we don't see many of them. It's just one evening, but just the way that Angela and Joe are both wearing blue, and then Pina and Hawk are both in black, and they're like Angela and Joe's shades are just slightly off from each other. It looks a lot like the paint that they're trying to decide between, and Angela just sort of like hers is kind of the same shade as the wall. She's sort of like blending into the apartment, like subtle things like that. I think are just really well observed. Where again, you could just like throw anything at this movie and just say, oh, it's a one location, dramedy that could be thrown on streaming or whatever. Like this, there's just so much care put into everything, and I really want us to get back to appreciating movies like this being in the theaters versus on streaming, and having really thoughtful craft that goes into it. Like I just feel like for so long that's comedies and romantic dramas, they can just kind of get kind of slopified and just you throw a couple pretty people in there and like you have a movie. But this is just so careful and deliberate about all of the choices that it makes.
Well, it's also important to point out too that you said that it's great to see a movie like this in theaters. When this premiered at Sundance, it was in this massive bidding war. Every single studio wanted this movie. Netflix, Searchlight, Focus, Sony, Neon, Apple, A24, and all of them were bidding the movie for as high as $10 million, which is a humongous bid for any movie that plays at Sundance. And then Olivia Wilde ended up going with A24 because they were going to give the film a proper theatrical release. And she wants movies like this to continue coming out in the theater because movies like this get relegated to streaming. Nobody talks about these movies. So I love the fact that we have this adult drama playing in all these theaters and people are going out to see it. Now, granted, when I went to these screens, I went into New York and New York is full of cinephiles and they will eat movies like this up. I don't know how this movie's going to do as it goes wide and everything. I'm really interested to see how it plays out. But I know so many people in my personal life who aren't even really into movies that want to go see this because they like the people involved and they like a good adult drama. And again, we don't really get many of these in the theater anymore. So it's refreshing that we get something like this. And I think it is so rewarding that Olivia Wilde really went to bat to make sure that this gets a proper theatrical release that's
Yeah.
making its way around the globe, being shown on these film prints and then getting proper releases so that people could go and then they just gush about how great it is and they dissect it and pick it apart and just say to themselves, maybe we need to work on ourselves and everything.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into if it stays in the conversation, if it does decent box office, how do you think it's going to do come award season?
So I have no idea how this is going to do, quite
Yeah.
frankly, because A24 right now with the awards, I don't know what direction they're going to go because they have a few films that are coming out later in the year that could possibly make its way into the awards conversation. But the thing about A24 is that they tend to also pick up a lot of festival titles. So when Venice comes around and when Toronto comes around in August, September, they could easily pick someone up and then that could be their main awards contender. 2 years ago, their main contender was The Brutalist. That had no distribution for the longest time. And then after it played at Venice, A24 picked it up, and that was their main awards juggernaut that entire season. So right now, looking at their catalog, The Invite could be up there as their main contender. But then on top of that, too, they have Tony coming out in August, which is the Anthony Bourdain movie starring Dominic Sessa. They have Primetime, which is the Chris Hansen biopic with Robert Pattinson. And then on top of that, they also acquired Club Kid out of Cannes, which was a huge favorite at the festival. They have The Debut, which is Jesse Eisenberg's new film. So they have a lot on their plate. They tend to kind of balance out multiple films at once. They're no stranger to campaigning multiple films in the same year. 2023, they had Zone of Interest and Past Lives. Those were their main contenders. 2022 was a very successful year because they had Everything Everywhere All at Once, which obviously went on to win Best Picture. A24 also cleaned up by winning all 4 acting categories. 3 of those prizes going to Everything Everywhere. And then Best Actor, of course, going to Brendan Fraser for The Whale. So I think that if the momentum continues to build, I would say for right now, I think it's going to get into picture, screenplay, adapted screenplay, and maybe that's it. I could see it maybe finding a way of getting into a below the line category, but the passion has to be super strong for them to break into more categories. And I do think that if they could sneak into picture, maybe it could get at least one acting nomination. I don't know who would be the likeliest to get an acting nom. I personally would love it if all 4 of them get nominated and they pull off something like that. The last time a film had all 4 acting categories filled was American Hustle back in 2013. So I think that maybe this could do that. But then there's also a huge narrative where Penelope Cruz is a previous winner, Edward Norton's a previous nominee, and Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde both have never been nominated for Oscars. And I think it would be very exciting if both of them did get nominated for this. But I think right now, with where I'm landing, I think a picture nom and a screenplay nom are where I'm going to go with this.
I would agree, and I think you're definitely right to call out the momentum is going to have a lot to do with it. I do think if this overperforms at the box office, it that would be a lot to carry through. I mean, it's not going to do obsession numbers or anything like that, but if it overperforms at all, I think there is going to be a narrative of like we're talking about, people want to see these adult, small, intimate adult dramedies on the big screen, and they can have this fanfare and they devote marketing to it and everything. So I think if it gets that sense, in the next couple weeks or so, I do think that'll do a lot to carry it. I think it can definitely show up and have a good showing at the Golden Globes, since that's separated into comedy and drama. I think that this could, show up in a lot of the you could get more acting nominations into the comedy categories, and that can be build a little bit more momentum. But yeah, as far as looking at the actual Oscar nominations, I think it's, as of now, with the state of movies as they are before the second half of the year, I do think I would predict it for screenplay as of right now. I think that pictures is going to depend. It's a really big year for big movies. We've got Odyssey, we've got Dune, we've got things that are likely to be Best Picture, Project Hail Mary, things that are already kind of people are holding a slot for. So picture might be a little tougher, but it could follow the Past Lives model, which was also A24 distribution and everything that, where it's a smaller movie but it has a whole lot of love behind it, and also that we wanted to get Greta Lee nominated for that one and it didn't happen. I do kind of feel like the performances might come up just short, but who knows? I do think that it's gonna need a lot of momentum to get anybody into acting categories. I think it would be fair to campaign Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde as leads and Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton as supporting. Penelope Cruz also is getting buzz for La Bola Negra, another movie that she has this year.
That's the thing. It's I think that if she were to get nominated for something, it's going to be for that movie.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot at play, and there's still a lot more movies to come out this year. So I'm not too hopeful about performances at this moment, but hopefully momentum is good. And yeah, I would love to see, as many nominations as it can get at the Oscars.
It would be great to finally call Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde Oscar nominees. It
Yeah.
would be really sick because they're both very deserving of that. I mean, Seth Rogen, he's done his fair share of dramatic roles. I think he should have been nominated for Steve Jobs. I would have been very fine if he got nominated for The Fablemans. I think he is an actor that has showcased that he's more than just the stoner comic guy. We talked about this on our Seth Rogen draft. He's showcased that he is more than that, and he's really involved into an incredibly talented person in front of and especially behind the camera. So I would like to hope that someday soon he is nominated for something. But yeah, the Golden Globes will definitely go hard for this movie, hopefully. But yeah, hopefully this is a possible awards contender. Hopefully it gets nominated for something. If it gets nominated for screenplay, I will actually be so happy because then I could finally say that somebody from Parks and Rec is an Oscar nominee because Rashida Jones is one of the writers, and as a huge fan of the character of Ann Perkins, I would be very happy to see her be called Oscar nominee Ann Perkins.
And speaking of TV, I actually feel like Seth Rogen might be in the best position because of the studio. Like I do think the fact
Yeah.
that he has something that's so prominent that's about Hollywood and it's biting, it's satirical, but it's also like such a celebration of movies and filmmaking that like feel like his star is on the rise even more so, and he was already such a well-known guy and everything. So I do think his narrative is definitely like probably the best out of the four of them.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, is there anything else you want to say before we give our final ratings?
I think that covers it. Did you have a favorite joke or like funny moment or anything? I think the first thing I thought of was when they were saying that Pena and Hawk are saying they're not sure exactly how old their one of their lovers is, and Seth Rogen is like, next time you're in there, count the rings. That like my theater like erupted in laughter. I didn't even hear like the next couple lines after that.
Funniest moment, it really was that sequence where they're in the room and they're dancing to the Sage song, and then he's like, "Thank you for this." Like, I think that's so funny.
Yeah,
There were many funny moments. I can't choose a particular one as my favorite.
yeah, great moments all around. For my rating here, I am giving this a 4.5 stars out of 5. It's kind of sort of arbitrary. I kind of have to see something a couple times or let something sink in a little bit more before I'm like, 5 stars. It's got to transcend. So I don't think that there are any real missteps in this movie. Obviously, I highly recommend it. Has now taken the title as my favorite of the year right now. It narrowly beats out the drama for me. I have The Invite, The Drama, and then Nirvana, The Band, The Show, The Movie. It's a big year for The.
You have
So-
two A24 movies as your favorites of the year.
Yep. And
for me,
so that's
this
where I'm
is-
at with this right now.
For me, this is easily a 5-star. This is my favorite film of the year so far as well. I've seen it twice. I already am planning on watching it again over the weekend. I cannot wait to watch this again and many more times. And yeah, I think that it's going to be very hard to find a film that tops this for me this year. I mean, I said that about Nirvana. Nirvana was my number one of 2026 since last September. So for 10 months, that took the top spot. And then I saw this and I'm like, well, anything is possible at this rate. So yeah, The Invite is a 5-star for me. My fourth 5-star of the year. I'm just waiting for the day where Veronica comes onto the pod and slaps a 5-star on the first film. I'm just waiting for that to happen. If it doesn't happen before the end of the year, I will be shocked. I would actually be shocked.
There's some years that it's not, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie year. There's a lot of love to go around. I don't know. Maybe will the Odyssey do it? I'm not sure. It's another The movie.
Another The movie. So we'll have to see with that. And with that, that's a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Bryan Sutfield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vera Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around and tune in every Monday and Thursday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.